Hello and welcome to this new video. It's a pleasure for me to see you here. And what are we talking about today? Today we are talking about how to identify the operational risk of open source components you're adding to your project. And if you're interested in this, stay tuned. By the way, my name is Sven. I'm developer advocate for JFrog, and as you can see, I'm here out in the woods. And if you like this outdoor theme and you want to learn more about cybersecurity, check out my YouTube channel. I have a German one, I have an English one. Make sure you're selecting the right one. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe my channel. It would be a pleasure for me to see you as my new subscriber. But now, let's start. So, big question, what's operational risk and why should I do this or know this? Say, imagine you have found an open source project, what you really would like to add to your project because it has nice APIs, has exactly the functionality you're using, or you need the functionality you need and you search for. And now this project is more or less very slow in development. Maybe the bugs are not really fixed, or vulnerabilities are not really removed, or you have just one maintainer, or so different things that are part of the calculation if this is an operational risk. It means if you're adding this dependency, it's working fine right now, but how big is the risk over the time that this will be updated, supported, and all this stuff. So this is operational risk, and I will show you how to get this information out of X-Ray. How to get this information so that you will see the operational risk information. You have several ways to go through this. You can go over build info, on mount scanning, and so on and so on. So you have different ways. I will show you how to do it on your machine with the JFrog CLI. The CLI, how to install this one. I have a dedicated YouTube video about this one. So downloading installer, connecting to X-Ray, done. If you have the CLI, then you are wrapping, for example, your Maven command. So Maven, clean, verify, and so on and so on. And then you're just wrapping it with JFrog and then building and Maven, clean, verify, and so on. So during this time, you're creating this build info. During the time this binary is created, build info is a superset of SBOM. So you can create an SBOM out of build info. And this build info contains a lot of information about the environment. And it's more or less a description of the context during the time you're creating this binary. One part of this build info, if you're pushing it to Artifactory, is that you have this operational risk tab. And this operational risk tab, you find this operational risk auch later in X-Ray menus if you have this component in repositories and so on. But if you have now this component built, and then you have all components inside this component to build this one, then you will have this list of this component there, and in this list you will see the operational risk and why it is green or red. And what are the components for operational risk? One component is end of life. So several components can have end of life. It could be discontinued in maintenance, it could be a newer version, and so on and so on. So several things that will give you the information it is end of life. And just to have this information that you are using an outdated and old, not maintained anymore project, then it's a good indicator to see it is a component you should have in mind before you're using this, and maybe it's time to switch to a newer one or to a different component. One element is, for example, version age. So you're using a component, it's very robust, it's working perfectly, but if you're checking the version number 2, 3, 1 or whatever, you see, oh, this version is 2 years old. This means that you don't have a very active project, and you should consider what is the risk for you if this is not maintained. There's no bug fixing anymore, so this version is very, very old. This is one of the risk components. So version age is one component. And the other thing is that the amount of new versions, or the number of new versions, is interesting. So if you have a version that's just 3 months old, but you have 10 new versions, then you have to decide if this cadence of new versions fit this to your project. Why you're using such an old version? Make it sense to jump every second version up? So it's something you should consider, how fast the development is, if this fits to your project, and how to deal with this. So the amount of new versions based on the version you are using. This is one of the factors. So the last component I want to highlight here is health of open source project. And here what we have is, for example, how many releases we have, how old is this release, how many releases per year, how many commits per day, week, month and year we have, how many different committers we have, and so on and so on. So different components that are going into this health of this open source project param. You should read the documentation about these params anyway to see this, the latest information and the latest change here. But in general, it's more or less how reactive, how active is this open source project from this component. Okay, I gave you an overview of the feature operational risk, and there are several params. It depends how old this video is. If you're looking at this one, maybe additional params are coming, so check out the latest documentation for this feature so that you have all the tiny information about the params itself. But the feature will give you guidance if this component can be an operational risk for your project, yes or no. So, and if you liked this video, don't forget, give me a thumbs up and subscribe my channel. It would be a pleasure for me. And otherwise, have a rest of your day and see you.